Right. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Williamson County Board of Commissioners regular scheduled meeting, August 8th, 2023. It's 10:01 a.m. Roll call, please.
Tim Atkinson.
Present.
Jim Marlowe.
Present.
Jim Razor.
Present.
At this time, I'd like us to rise. Say the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you please?
I sure will. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings you provide to us each and every day. We ask you, though, this busy week, to be with all the teachers and students of Williamson County as they go back into the classroom. Always ask that you be with our first responders, keep them safe. Look over our servicemen and women that are scattered all around the globe to help keep us safe as we live here in a great nation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right, starting at the top of our agenda today is the consent agenda. You guys have a chance to take a look at the minutes and reports. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to accept the consent agenda. Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Atkinson.
Yeah.
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Jim Razor.
Next on the agenda would be public comment. We have one person, it looks like three people. If there's a comment, now would be the chance. Hearing no comment, we'll move on down. Regional Office of Education, I guess they were supposed to be here, Stephanie.
Yeah, Randy was supposed to come and present today, because we're going to be in.
Okay, well, if they show up before the end of the meeting, we'll give them the time. Moving on down, Travis from the Highway Department, have you got anything you'd like to tell us and share with us?
I don't. I just got a county engineer meeting I need to head to here shortly, and just want to make sure you guys didn't have anything from the highway department.
Good. All right, thanks,
All
Travis.
right, appreciate it.
On down to new business, internal auditor position. This is something. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, should have asked old business. What do you got, Jim?
I did meet with one company about, we were talking about the countywide cleanup day. I did meet with one company, and another question was, how do we post this and keep it comparing apples to apples? And the idea is just request, other than listing what materials we would take and what materials we wouldn't take, would be to list it as a price per. That would let it give us a price per ton for everything. And plus whatever other qualifications that we would accept. You know, like at a transfer station, in the materials we'd accept, materials we wouldn't accept. So, price per ton. Sound reasonable to you guys?
I'm not sure how else you can do it, really.
All right, that's all I have.
Do we know what,
How many tons?
no, do we know what, materials, just no chemicals, no tires? Like, in order to put this together,
Yeah,
I need the details
right.
to do
Yeah.
so I didn't know.
We
if you guys
discussed
wanted
that, and there was a couple, I've got the list on my desk. There was a couple items that we wouldn't take. Of course, chemicals was one thing. Latex or oil-based paints, which just kind of falls under chemicals and stuff. We would accept latex only if it's been treated with cat litter. Then you can throw it into your general trash. But everything else, like electronics, white goods, the issue with the white goods, but I think we've overcome this, was refrigerators, air conditioners have Freon. And of course, EPA regulates, capturing the Freon and everything. So basically I suggested, and which is, in talking with this one company, they agreed, set the white goods that possibly would have Freon off a certain area. And then they could contact the gentleman that could capture the Freon at a later time. And that way things could keep moving. You wouldn't have to wait until something was defeated. to set up the site, and they'll contact, they've got a guy that they contact with, or other companies to contact with. So they would have to be able to capture the freedom in order to take white goods. For white goods would be one of the things that I would like to see. And there's a couple companies that can't accept it. So it'll come down to who can accept what our terms are on this. As far as the date is concerned, looking possibly first and second week in October. Because we can discuss that a little bit later. We can check on when other places have theirs. One of the gentlemen that I was talking to, they had just done this in Murfreesboro. Murfreesboro had a 2-day cleanup, and they collected like 130 tons, I think it was. The 1 day, limited time, say like from either 6 to 11 or 8 to 11, 1 to 2 times. That would limit what we would take. As I was talking with Travis, tires would be one thing that we could take. And I was just seeing that the highway department could take tires. If not, then there would be a cost of turning those tires in. We have to follow the EPA rules on it.
You pay a per tire fee for disposal.
Right. So by the time we figured all this in, I think it's going to be well within our budget for recycling that we still have. And of course, this first year will be a learning curve. If there's any additional costs, I think we're going to be budget for that next year.
We might benefit from a conversation with Lori at Progress Board. Some of what's come up just today came up in a conversation I had with them back months ago, unrelated to this. And there are some pitfalls, certainly with the tires, that they had mentioned that can turn into a real mess if it's not done just right. And I think we want to make sure we've got all the pieces in place before we go.
I agree.
Also, a little concerned with the white goods and the idea of setting them off to the side. I think that gets into the location. I understand it's not our issue, it's the issue of whoever takes the contract. But the location selection now would have to be one that would be all right with storing white goods, whatever the number is, until this individual can show up to handle the freon. So I think we're building in a couple of pitfalls here that we need to be aware of.
I understand. And the way I'm looking at it is everybody has the same opportunity. So if somebody would have to figure out how are they going to handle it before giving us a bid.
I'm wondering how we're gonna handle the tires. Travis, do you collect tires out there? Do you have your own tires that you get rid of?
So we have a deal with EPA, and we put these tires that we pick up on the sides of the roads and put them in a trailer. And then like once a year, they come pick them up and they don't charge us anything. My understanding, just from talking to the city of Marion, because they got into this trick bag a couple of years ago. If they advertise, then the EPA says we'll no longer accept your tires for free to pay. So I've got the guy's phone number, call and double check, but basically, if you guys advertise for trash pickup and take tires, then any tires we pick up on the side of the road for the county highway department, then they're gonna start charging us to take it, because they can't differentiate between the tires.
Somebody that I was talking to, they've dealt with this before.
And
They
then-
know who to contact. They know all the ins and outs of it. Another item that would not be accepted would be garden waste, tree limbs, which is shrubbery. So,
So so I understand Travis and the highway department would be involved in all the entire, okay? Okay.
But it's your belief it may affect you.
That's, so I just asked,
they pick it up.
no.
If the county as an entity,
The county as an entity advertises that they'll take them, then it throws everybody into paying it. That's what happened with Doug Phillips in the city of Marion. The city of Marion advertised their pickup, said they take tires, they got a bunch. And then the EPA comes along and said, now that you've advertised for the next year, anything that is brought in, you gotta pay to get rid of it. They won't pick them up for free.
Well, I wonder how that would play if, we're not actually the ones doing the pickup. We're just saying that they could bring this stuff here.
It was
The
the same.
company, would it be considered the same?
So the city of Marion didn't do the pickup. They had a location that they could drop off, somebody could drop off a tire.
But they were the sponsor.
Correct.
We're picking it up by contract.
Right. The purpose of that is you go to Walmart and change your tires out, they assess a pour charge
Right.
for the tire.
Right.
Well, there's some people that will do that, but never do it. Well, when the EPA comes in and looks at tires purchased, they expect for a tire purchase, there was a tire disposal. And there's a fee associated with that.
Right.
If they don't match up the number of tires with the disposals, then somebody has to pay that fee.
This is where the county is picking up the cost on this, the whole.
But that's the problem, is the county is picking up the cost, so therefore it would disqualify the highway department
Okay.
from future
Yes.
All right.
free pickup, because you are sponsoring other people to utilize, and the EPA wants the money.
So the people go to Walmart, buy a new set of tires, and say, hey, the county's having to pick it next week. I'm not paying that $5 per tire disposal fee. I'll take them home, I'll take them to the county.
Correct. Or any other
Or any other entity that's doing it.
Or
Or they're throwing it off on the side of the road, and we pick it up. So,
Well, things that need to work out.
yes.
So,
I'll call that guy. I've got his phone number and have the EPA. I'll call and verify that.
this is just stuff that we're just talking about anyway, trying to get an idea.
No, listen, I'm
What
all.
we can, what we can't do.
If we can do it, it's great because it saves us from having to pick it up on the road.
That's the idea.
But the problem is you may get 2,000 tires.
The idea of two behind tires was to limit the number to 4 automotive, no tractor tires or anything like that. Just no commercial. So anyway, that's just food for thought. And we'll look into it a little bit more.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for your work on that. Jim, did you have any old business you need to talk about? I see ROE has made it into the room.
Yes,
Would you like to give us your report?
I can. I'm here on behalf of the ROE. Lori LaQuat cannot be here today. So I have not done this before, so you'll have to kind of tell me what you need from me, but I did bring some things for you.
Usually Lori just gives us from the county and what you guys have been up to.
Okay, yeah.
Really, really informal, just.
So I'll give you those. That's kind of the year in as a whole from last year. And then this is our current up-to-date school administrator list. So I thought you might want to have that. I don't know if she shared that with you before. So you have it. I have a couple other things with you, for you, but I don't know if you really are interested in those or not, but I'll show you those in a minute. So looking at, the official acts of our office, the first page I gave you. If I can run down a few of these for you. I don't know if you have any initial questions before I go through it, or you want me to just hit on some different things. Just go through? Okay. So currently we have 51 employees with ROE 21, and we cover 4 counties. We have right under 20,000 students in the 4 counties, approximately 119, 120 administrators. They're still hiring at this point. So teachers, we're looking at probably around 1,300 teachers. And this was from last year, so again, this will increase this year, for this next year. We run a ton of different grant programs that you might not be familiar with. I don't know how much you've heard about these grant programs, but we are actually the lead hub, one of the 6 lead hubs in the state of Illinois. And we were fortunate enough to be able to be awarded these grants and hire the staff to run them. One of the major ones that we're running this year, this is our last year for it, is our social emotional learning grant. It's a trauma response and trauma informed grant. We have currently 628 school leaders involved in that grant because, as you know, these teachers really need this SEL support in these schools and how to help their fellow teachers deal with the stresses and traumas of all these kids coming in. Now, that number, that 628, this grant particularly covers 5 ROEs. So it's called Area 6. So we're part of Area 6 and we're the fiscal agent for this grant. So that's over 5 ROEs. We have, like I said, 628 school leaders. So that's 82 districts participating. So that's a huge, huge number for us to try to run this grant. These are the grants that are listed below. Another one I wanted to mention that's a big grant is our Illinois Elevating Special Educators Grant. Right now, well, last year we had 300 special educators that we had brought in and provided a special education cohort for. And so we're building capacity in these special education teachers to be able to go back to their districts and help others. And that particular grant, we cover 7 ROEs. So not only our 5 ROEs, 2 other ROEs, so ROE 45 and 50. So that's St. Clair County as well. So that's a big grant too. We have two more years left with that grant. You probably heard of the McKinney Vendor Homeless Grant. Right now, our ROE, as of last year, served 1,540 students and families. And then in Area 6, we've served 6,634 students and families. And that's Area 6 there. Then the next page, looking at fingerprinting. You may know we fingerprint not only teachers and individuals in the school districts, we also do community agencies, so we do construction, nurses, liquor license, things like that. Last year, we fingerprinted around 1,500 people within 4 counties. The next thing I'll touch on is Kids Foundation. So that's down a little bit of the ways there. We served 200 kids and their families with Kids Foundation, and with that, what that is kind of it's a opt-in for teachers. They could have $1 or $2 come out of their paycheck to go towards this foundation. It's just real different from the ones in the county, because that's how it started years ago. And so that money goes towards electric bills or, taxis or anything like that the families need in addition to the kids. Mattresses, we pay for things like that too. Educator licensure, so this is a huge part of our the ROE that we serve our counties. Right now, well, last year, and we're continuing right now, it's really getting busy because their districts are looking for individuals to fill those spots, but almost 2,000 inquiries and assistance with licensure and certification. So that's been pretty substantial as well. The next page, our Partners Against Chronic Truancy Grant. We have really been working hard on this. Our group of truancy individuals went to districts and done specific presentations to the districts to intervene and try to be proactive so that these students come to school, and they've presented to teachers and students with this grant. We have served 840 students last year with this grant, doing home visits and that type of thing, phone calls. You can see the breakdown there. GED testing is another service we provide. We really don't have a room for that anymore. We did hold that at Johnny Logan College, so we're working with them again to try to hold that again at Johnny Logan, because our new office, our new building space is booked almost every single day with our training room. So we're having a hard time trying to figure out where to do our GED testing. Bus driver trainings, the next section there. We do initial bus driver trainings for every bus driver in our counties. And last year we offered 13 classes and had 346 participants. And that's also including the refresher. So once they do the initial, they have to go back and do a refresher every single year. So we're responsible for that as well. Health, life, safety, we have an individual that goes into every single building every year and does health, life, safety visits. And he visited all 60 buildings, including our private schools. So he visited those, and you can see the breakdown on all the permits and all of that. Just to FYI, Johnson City School District's getting a new unit office. It's almost ready, or might be ready this week. Carterville school district has a new unit office, and there's several other, Massac County is potentially getting a new unit office, so several other buildings that are being proposed built also. And then moving over to our alternative school, so Project Echo, they served 334 students, about on average last year. And then Starquest Academy, which is our safe school, on the next page, that's about 73, I think is what I tallied off there, that they served last year. And then the JDC, which we do cover the JDC, the Juvenile Detention Center, was about 189 total. As far as professional learning, like I mentioned, our training room is booked for all of these events. So last year, we held about 145 events, and we served over 3,000 participants in all of our events. So we're pretty busy in that arena. That's really all I wanted to touch on, so that you knew all of those things that we're doing. Currently, we have a shortage of teachers, if you haven't heard, and we have a shortage of subs as well. So we are offering again this year a subs for subs training. So we are actually feeding them, we're paying for their background check. If they have 60 hours of college coursework, they are able to sub. So if you would like to have one of these to share, these are the dates of our trainings. They're all held at our training room. We're looking for subs. We're looking for teachers. So if you want one of these, pass this around if you want to share it. And then our truancy guys wanted me to share their end of the year report, just to let you know how busy we've been with truancy and students just not attending school. So I'll pass those around as well.
Are any of the openings in the classrooms being filled by retired teachers?
Some are. Some, the majority, to be real honest, are being filled with substitute teachers because they cannot find qualified teachers. We do have some retired teachers that have come back to work the minimum amount of days that they can work. If a district has posted a position for, I think it's 6 months, and they can't find anybody, then a retired teacher can actually fill that position for a year, still maintain their retirement, and also be positioned in the district for that 1 year. So the paperwork that we have to fill out for that, but essentially it's a good deal for the retiree if they're willing to do it.
All right, unless it fills a position that's open.
Absolutely, and it's a qualified person.
Do you have any of those positions open?
Which ones?
The ones that have been open for 6 months, advertised for 6
We
months?
do. We have a couple, and they're looking at, a couple of them are on the edge of the 6 months, and that's the stipulation. So once they get to that point, they're using a sub right now. Once they get to that point, then they're able to fill that paperwork out for that retiree to come back.
Good.
I also see the bus set up with the recruitment sign. Or do you have a shortage of bus drivers?
Yes. Yes. John, actually, yesterday I was on the phone with John Wagner at Marion. He's our transportation director. He's going in another class. We're offering them every other month. And the other ROEs offer them as well, but we just can't seem to, he gets a call, and we need him trained, and we can't have a whole training for one person. So, we're trying to field that out to others to see how we can get them trained.
Is that across all 4 counties or just Williamson?
We offer the training in Metropolis and here in Marion, the initial trainings, but all 4 counties have a shortage, so. Any other questions?
Any other questions, guys? Thank you so much.
You're
I think
welcome.
that was very informative. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. If you ever have any questions or you want to stop over and see us, come over and see us.
It's good to hear this because you guys are really, really busy.
We are so busy. We are. I just lost my lead hub coordinator, which is our principal grant mentoring coordinator. So I'm desperately seeking someone for that position right as we speak. So thank you.
Thank you. Guys, so no more old business, let's move on to new business, internal auditor position. Now, we had talked about this earlier in the year, and I don't know, maybe it should have been on old business. I don't know. But, what's your thoughts, guys? I think we reached the point where we actually need to fill this, we need to create this position and fill it.
I agree. This position,
I think an internal auditor will also assist us in budget prep. Once they go through that, once or twice, I think that would be, I think that person would be a benefit for us in budget prep.
Well, I guess the clarification I asked for in discussion here is, as I look through the budget, we have multiple lines that look like to me they can be zeroed out for hiring an internal auditor. Is that what we're talking about working toward, or is this adding another layer?
What were your line items you talking about, like in zero?
Well, one item is titled Budget Assembly, which I assume would be done by an internal auditor. Also consulting, that most of that has gone to budget questions and audit questions. And then audit prep, which is a separate line from single audit. I realize single audit would always be an outside auditor. But if we're talking about zeroing out or even cutting some of these lines, then it makes sense. But if we're talking about adding this as a layer, these add up to $120,000 a year. We're already spending. If we're going to replace those with an internal, then I think we can go any day we want to go.
Actually, I think my vision of the internal auditor would be to help us with budget prep, absolutely. Also, that person would also be overseeing claims. Just to that, I have been notified that we're paying sales tax on purchases on Amazon and all places. Those things are being caught. I think there's a significant savings there on that also. But yeah, that's what this is for. Let's talk about what we see this person's job duties being. And you see it as budget prep, as
I think even in, I have a level here that needs to be filled by some education, but when I read a line of audit prep, not the audit itself, but just gathering the documents, delivering the documents, again, that seems like something that could be done by an internal audit.
I would think that, yeah, right, prepping that information and giving that to the auditor.
That's an $82,000 line, and that gives us some latitude.
Some can be, some because of the auditing standards has to be hands off by the entity and has to be collected directly by the auditor. I don't know which, as I sit here today, but I do know that one of the purposes of that is so that the auditor is independently auditing as opposed to being spoon-fed what we want the auditor to see. So I don't know how much of that line that you have is independent versus because it's a blurred element at this point.
Do you believe there's some there though? I mean, some legwork that can be done or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think the general public records can be provided to the auditor. I think when they're looking at, for instance, I know when they do an audit of the circuit clerk's office, the auditing firm has to go in and actually pull the files themselves to look at the fines and the monies received, as opposed to having the circuit clerk hand them a stack of files and say, here's your sampling of this. So that's the independent. So there is some, and there's going to be some that's not.
Jim, did you have any questions about that?
No, I just kind of like to see what all the expectations would be for this position. Before we move further.
Right. I think if we're going to move down this trail towards this, I think we need to build what we think this job's going to be.
Absolutely.
And bring it back to the board. We can look and see what we think it's going to be.
Well, keep in mind that internal auditor has some independence.
It's going to have some
It creates an office, position exists for a period of time. It's not just, we're here, 6 months later, we're not. So there are some long-term implications from that as well, that I just want to make sure you guys are
Good.
reminded of that. We discussed it the first time we went through, and I think everybody was on board as far as this would be a good move, but probably need to do better.
Well, in a population of 70,000, statute says we have to have one. We can remove one later
Correct.
by ordinance or resolution, but population is so close, we need to consider, like you say, make a run at it for a while and see how useful it is. So I do think it's something we need to bring in. I just think we need to balance it against where we've been spending money and not add an unnecessary layer of government, which none of us.
So would you guys want me to pursue this then? And start looking into this and actually start building a job description? Keeping in mind that there is a job description for an internal auditor.
So we can work on that.
Okay?
Sounds good.
That's what we're going to head then.
Excellent.
Okay, I will get that back to you guys as soon as possible. And
Okay.
All right.
any other new business? All right. Resolutions, polling place relocation. Amanda, I know that you worked really, really hard on this. Could you give us some information on this?
Sure. So in July, I believe it was, in June, you guys voted to combine and change some precincts. We went from 65 polling places down to 56 precincts. So this is a result of all of that. And it's pretty lengthy because I added the list of the polling places since we had so many changes. We did find four new polling places that we're going to be utilizing. But some of this is also saying, the ones that we're not using anymore because we've consolidated the precinct, things like that. So it's a long list, but it's what we typically do when we move a precinct. And since there are some of these that their precinct names change, the polling place might just be one that we're using, but it's a different name now. I've kind of put all that on here.
Amanda, I've actually filled in a couple of calls about this. And, your office be notifying the voters where the new polling place is.
We'll be sending out new voters cards. We have to do that every 2 years. And so I'm going to do a press release before that goes out. Just alert people, I do that every time anyway, to look at their voters card. It will have their new polling place on it, or if it stays the same. But it will have their polling place, the location of it, the things they get to vote on, which should match their tax records. And if, they get cards for someone who doesn't live in the household, then they can notify us if somebody has moved or something.
Well, that was my answer. I was glad to hear that.
Yeah, we do that purge every 2 years.
You said 4 are moving.
4 are actually new locations. There's more than that are moving. But some of them, it was maybe the polling place name just changed, but the location is the same. When we separated those districts in East Marion, there were representative district to split a couple of precincts, so we had to split those precincts. So, but there's actually 4 brand new polling places on this list.
Should probably encourage precinct committee to reach out in the smaller subsection, let folks know that they can move or change.
Well, September 5th is when we'll be picking up precinct petitions to run for precinct committeemen. So they probably will be coming in, and I'm sure they'll be wanting new maps of the precinct. Yeah, we'll do some press releases and let people know that their polling place could have changed.
September 5th is petition.
First day for petitions. They don't file till, I think, November.
And then what day would, how many will,
I don't have that. On the top of my head, it's March.
it's in
I
March?
think it's like about the 19th, but I'm not positive. Sorry.
And the new voting machines will be ready.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any more questions about this resolution, polling place relocation?
No, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 23-08-08-3, polling place relocation.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Atkinson.
Yeah.
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Jim Razor.
Always March 19th.
March 19th.
Yes.
We'll be here before we know it. Next on resolution, we have a sell to new owner. I'm gonna just going to make the motion, sell to new owner, motion to approve sell to new owner for Whittington 01-28-400-033.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Atkinson.
Yes,
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Jim Razor.
Jay.
I remember my first meeting after I was elected, we had about 50 of these that I had to read. Moving on down into ordinances. Stephanie made me aware that we had a couple of liquor licenses that were not being used. And this is something that we do every time we have an opening. We try to limit those numbers to ones that are actually being used. She does have a chance to take a look at this ordinance to change it up.
That's the only change, right? Reduce the number.
Yeah, there were no other changes, correct?
Correct.
And it was it just Class A, or was there another class that we closed out also?
Class A, there were some changes. There was another one on there that we didn't have a license for, so it was
Okay.
changed as well.
And that's it. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
Move to approve ordinance number 23-08-08-09, amend liquor license.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Atkinson.
Yeah.
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Jim Razor.
Jay. I do have one question.
Yes.
The liquor license for the Walker's Club.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna talk to Dr. Brett after the meeting, but we can go ahead and talk about it right now. We've gotten a notice that they're going to have a day later in the month. They get approved to have like a run through, and they're gonna sell alcohol on that particular date. And I received information last week that they're managing, or the manager, general manager left. I reached out to them yesterday and talked to the new manager. He actually lives in Massac County, which, we just opened it up to the counties adjacent to Williamson County. And that was going to be my question to Rhett, whether or not we open it up to Massac, but I think that's probably not what we want to do. And so yesterday I told the manager that they would more than likely have to have somebody from the organization come in here that would be responsible for that. And I'm gonna reach out to them after the meeting and tell them that's what has to happen. They need to get their background check done before they have this event. They paid for the license, everything else is in good standing, they just need to get a person record on it. Okay. We have another ordinance.
Green energy.
Green energy ordinance, yeah. So they do. Do you have the next one? Thank you. Last year, we enacted an ordinance for the green energy. And right after we did that, I think the state came in and changed one of the requirements for that. And I think it was a setback, wasn't it, Brett?
It was. So they made some changes to the setback requirements. So what I've done is I've taken the ordinance, talking with Alex, and we put the setbacks now listed. Previous ordinance listed specific setbacks. It said so many feet from this and so many feet from that. Now we've referenced it back to the statute, so that way if the state changes it in the future, it automatically changes the ordinance without us having to take any other action. So that's the only change that, that occurred to you.
Perfect. Alex, you got anything to say about this?
Nope, that summed it up perfectly.
Off the top of your head, because I get asked every so often about how many solar energy generation we have.
Commercial solar,
Commercial.
on this year's tax bill, we've got 4. John A.'s got 1 that's exempt. We've got 1 that's coming on in 23, maybe 3 or 4 more. Getting ready to start construction this year.
Thank you, Alex.
Brett, if you could correct me or clarify, but what the state has done recently has really limited any change that we can make. Are we not required now to live by their standards?
We are, and so really what it was is, and I don't remember, I think we had 20 feet from an adjoining property and then the state made it 30. We had another that it had to be from the front line versus back line, and they specified a different. So rather than get into, well, this one we were better than, this one that was, we just went with the state standard and said, that's how we'll do the ordinance, we'll reference that specific. So this ordinance that we pulled was kind of the template that the entire state was using when Alex and I went through it to modify it to Williamson. And then the state came back and did some additional amendments to the legislation. So any future amendments to the legislation will go under that same statute site. So we should go ahead with the statute site.
Thank you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Williamson can be more restrictive than the state statute.
Just
if
maybe
we
less.
If we so choose, but more often than not, we were less restrictive, so.
And I think it was specifically that our ordinance said that the setback was 20 feet and the state said it was 30. So ours was less restrictive and we needed to amend it in order to be in compliance with the state.
Any more questions about this ordinance?
No, I make the motion that we approve the Williamson County ordinance number 23-08-08-10, the amendment to the Williamson County ordinance for green energy or renewable energy facilities.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Magnuson.
Yeah.
Jim Marlowe.
Yay.
Jim Razor.
Yay.
Thank you. Moving on down, we have a board appointment to the 708 board. And Jim, you serve on that board.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about this?
Yes, 708 board is going through some reorganization process right now. And in doing so, we've changed our meeting times. Normally, our meeting times were usually at 12 noon, once a quarter. Or so, and in changing and reorganizing, we've had to meet a little bit more often, and we had to change our meeting times to during the morning. And due to that, one of our board members, Mr. Jim Parker, it was a little bit difficult for him to meet those meeting times. And so he's agreed to step down and allow somebody else to take his position. And that position will be filled by Bill Young, who served the remainder of Jim Parker's term. Jim Parker was served as a great board member on 7-week. We're going to miss Jim. And I think Bill Young would be an excellent fit to replace Jim. So he'll start, with the remainder of his term, which was due to expire December 31st, 2025. Start today. So I'd like to make a resolution that we appoint approve resolution number 23-08-08-85 to appoint Bill Young on the 708 board. Replacing Commissioner Parker.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Atkerson.
Yeah.
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Jim Reeser.
It's good to find people that are willing to serve on these boards. It's a hard thing to do. And Jim, Mr. Parker is this veterinarian or?
Yes.
Okay. Have you so missed?
Yeah, he did. He did.
It's a very good job. Miscellaneous. I don't really have anything right now to share on miscellaneous. Larry, do you have anything you'd like to talk about?
I'd like to congratulate the Thrillbillies on winning a division championship and remind everyone that they're playing for a conference championship tonight. They sure like to see some support out there at the ballpark. Good to have winners back in Williamson County.
Anything though? Very exciting. Very exciting. Jim, do you have anything that you'd like to talk about? Anybody else have anything they'd like to talk about? Pat, I didn't look at you today,
I don't know.
but all right.
I have an
The
update about it.
hazard mitigation plan has been approved
You do?
for 5 years.
Okay.
And I have an update on the staging agreement. The state reached back out yesterday. They are in the process of revising the staging agreements. I had advised them, this is the one where event of a disaster, they've got 3 different locations. The locations are not owned by the county. They wanted the county to sign off on guarantees about the staging. And I said the county was not willing to do that, that we needed agreements with each individual entity, but the county was willing to help coordinate that. I think I finally got that process through to them after another Zoom call. With 2 other attorneys saying, oh, now we understand.
Yeah,
what
we
you're
understand.
saying. And I said, so I hope to have those here in the coming week and we can to help distribute those. I offer Brian services in helping distribute to the entities.
Yeah, I'll pass it on to Brian whenever he gets back in the office.
Brett, on the inventory the county has on Crab Orchard National Wildlife Refuge, what should be our next steps? Because as I've talked to the parties involved, it sounds like most of what's out there, the groups that are involved are willing to just let it go. But what's the process we need to do to make it so that we can get rid of it? How do we get rid of it and avoid picking up these lease charges?
So we would do an inventory of surplus property and pass a resolution by the board declaring that it's surplus, subject to sale. And then depending upon what the items are, if they're subject to trash and throw away, then we've got documentation as to what was contained. I know there's the one Airstream and a couple of other potential bigger ticket items that we would put out for advertisement and accept sealed bids and pass those titles on.
I had that. I didn't have any time for me, but I do have that. That will be on the next meeting. And I've asked them about getting into that to take, I think we're still need to go out and clear the way for us. Some of that stuff we can't get into.
So it looked like Brian had asked for an extension and I didn't read that we got that.
You have. And the issue with the igloos is that the doors are, I mean, they're gonna have to help us get in there because we get the locks off, we just can't get the doors open. And the one door we tried to get open, it actually moved the whole frame and everything out there. We don't want to damage anything.
Right.
So, and just see what's in there and what's keepable.
Did you read that? Did you read that? I'll send that to you. I'm not sure. We have to, if we do not use those after we make it.
Right.
And then there was a question about a 5-year lease, and it was a 90-day, when we can get out of the lease. Right. Again, I'm not seeing the lease, and until I see it, or to one of us sees it, we can get legal to take a look at it.
I told Brian to have him take a look at the lease.
Well, and I've been asking, I've asked a dozen times, and we still don't have our hands on that lease.
And I guess my concern was this all trips over the end of September. So we're talking about 7 weeks, and this sounds like a large amount of stuff to be inventoried and resolution and so forth. So I just didn't feel like we had, I mean, it's not an enormous amount of money, but it's an unnecessary amount of money to spend.
Unnecessary expense.
If we're going to get rid of most of it, we've got locations for what we want to keep. You know, if I can help keep push this along, just let me know what I can do.
Absolutely. What is it? And if you find something that I need to do, I'll be like,
Okay.
Some of those items that are in there too are leftover drugs, and sewings and everything else, charge needles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, triage.
The way you said that, it just, that taking leftover drugs.
Several years ago, I sat with calling the file guru from the state. And he came down and went through a pallet full of files when we were purging files. And he sat down and he told us what we had to keep, what we could dispose of. And the only slow up we'll run into is if we run into, say we open up a bunker and there's a bunch of files in there. Then we have to have the state come down, look at them, tell us, yes, you can throw them away, or no, you have to keep these for so long, you know.
We could move them to a different
We
location.
can move them, yeah, we can move them, but just want to make sure we stay within the guidelines of what needs to be archived, what can be disposed of.
Absolutely. Okay, does anybody have anything else? All right, and I think we'll finish. Motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Roll call, please.
Jim Matheson?
Yes.
Jim Marlowe? Jim Moser?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes. We didn't just,
On your vote